We're in the dog days of summer. It's the off season, not much going on. You would think, but there's some pebbles in there you could dig out, some interesting nuggets of information. Chief among them, what's been going on for weeks now has been Jonathan Kuminga, the prize young rookie, and whether or not he has the dedication, the commitment that it takes to be a superstar player in the NBA. The Warriors also added some players, at least to their training camp, with the potential for one of these players to take that 14th roster spot if Andre Iguodala decides to retire. Sophia Jones, a guard for the San Jose State women's basketball team, is going to join me to give us a younger perspective on the Warriors' young trio, what's going through their minds, whether or not what they're doing is immature or just par for the course. We're going to break it all down next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow Sophia Jones on Twitter at Sophia Jones_2. She is a guard. I don't know if you're a shooting guard or point guard for the San Jose State Spartans women's basketball team. And also you've got tremendous progeny, given your dad's position as one of the preeminent premier NBA broadcasters. You seem to be following in his footsteps, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at Dog Surf Roadshow. Sophia, how are you doing? How's your summer? How's your family? How's life?
I'm doing well. You mentioned if I was a shooting guard or point guard. I feel like if you saw me in real life, you would be able to tell immediately by my height that I am, in fact, a point guard. I'm 5'6", so but yeah, just been going through some summer workouts, a lot of basketball. So nice to kind of be able to talk basketball a little bit instead of just playing.
Hell yeah, we're going to do plenty of that.
Yeah.
And a huge reason I brought you on, besides the fact that you're talented, you know the game, I wanted to get a younger perspective because one of the very few negative tidbits of information to come out of Warriors camp has been this weird attribution from Stephen A. Smith. I'm going to play it real quick again just to remind people, where he basically was revealing that according to his sources, there is concern among the Warriors organization in regard to Jonathan Kuminga's work ethic, his commitment to the team. Anyway, so let's play it one more time. We've done this before, but here is Stephen A. Smith about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, talking about Jonathan Kuminga.
To be significant, I'm worried about Kuminga. I'm hearing too many things about him off the court in terms of his head, the level of discipline that he lacks. You understand? Mm-hmm. Some of the foolishness. I'm not getting in his personal business. I'm not saying nothing like that. I'm talking attitude. I'm not talking actions. I'm saying that attitude, the level of focus, commitment, determination, just putting your head down, doing the work. I'm hearing that he's shortchanging the Warriors in that regard, and he got to get his act together because I'm a Jonathan Kuminga fan.
All right, so that was what Stephen A. Smith said. Who knows who his source is and whether or not it's even true. Andre Iguodala then said on his podcast, and I was trying to find the damn thing. No one marked down the time, so I'll just read the attribution. Andre Iguodala on his podcast Point Forward came out and said, quote, he took some licks from Stephen A. I don't know how warranted they were because from what I heard, he'd been doing what he's supposed to do this summer. Unquote. And look, he's 19 years old. All right, he's insanely young. Sophia, when you first heard the Stephen A. comments, what went through your mind? Was there any concern for you for Jonathan Kuminga? I'm sure you relate a lot more than anyone else I've talked to. What were your first thoughts when you heard that?
Yeah, my thoughts most so were kind of what you said. You can't even be sure if this is true. Kuminga, he's so young, like you said, 19 years old. And I think what is kind of in the game now is you're seeing a lot of younger players start earlier and doing more earlier. So sometimes that can kind of accumulate over time and you get to that level like the NBA and it's kind of you can maybe get a little bit burnt out. I'm not saying this is what happens, but this is definitely something that, that could be seen and just taken the wrong way. But at the same time, the Warriors, obviously, they played all the way through the finals. Then you had Kuminga in the summer league. And then you also see him playing on the national team for Democratic Republic of the Congo, which I
Right.
feel like after that long of a season and on top of summer league, for him to go out on his own time and still play for their national team, I feel like that does still say a lot about his commitment to just wanting to get extra reps in.
That's a great call. No, you're absolutely right. And part of, I think, why this drew a little concern from Dub Nation and why it drew attention from a lot of media members like myself is because this wasn't new. If this was the first time we heard this, you'd probably just shrug your shoulders, be like, whatever, Stephen A., who knows what he's drumming up. But this has been a theme that's been going on throughout the season. Draymond Green's talked about his difficulties communicating with Kuminga given the age gap. Kevon Looney, who I believe sits next to Kuminga in the locker room, has echoed similar sentiments, adding that Kuminga oftentimes has a bit of a stubborn approach, that he doesn't like to listen to advice that the older players give him. Andre Iguodala, who defended him on his recent podcast, also echoed similar sentiments, saying that Kuminga at times, has this stubbornness when it comes to listening to others and maybe just wants to do things his way. And then, of course, there's that comparison between him and Moody. And maybe that's unfortunate for Kuminga that he was drafted along with another lottery pick in Moses Moody, who seems to be providing much more of a picture of a model of what you want from your rookie in terms of like attitude, effort, and he just does seem more NBA ready. Now, given all that stuff, I don't doubt Kuminga's commitment, but what about him in terms of like being an open-minded individual, maybe listening to the veterans when they're trying to give him advice? What are your thoughts on all that stuff?
I kind of just try to see it and like relate to it as when I was like a freshman coming in to play Division I basketball, and to a certain extent, if you get to that level, you're always been told probably like the majority of your life that like what you're doing and like you're the best at it. So sometimes your confidence can take a little bit of a hit when all of a sudden it's like people are telling you, oh no, you got to do this, you got to do this.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's honestly just a little bit getting used to and getting more accustomed to taking that criticism and translating it on the court.
Mm-hmm.
So this could be something that's happening with Kuminga, and it could really just be a case kind of where he's young. I know he's so young. So
He's younger than you, right?
He is younger than me. I was looking at that the other day. And yeah,
which is crazy. You're a sophomore, junior, right? I mean, you're super young.
I know. So I finally reached the age where I look at some of these NBA players and it's like, wow, like I'm actually older than y'all now. But so yeah, and there is also kind of a little bit of like the generational communication gap. I mean, Kuminga couldn't even go to like the club and drink with his teammates when they won the championship. So it's sometimes even that where you're better receiver to constructive criticism when you have a better bond with that person.
Right.
So sometimes maybe you can look a little bit at the bond in terms of like how strong that connection is, which is you see kind of like Iguodala, where he takes that veteran role like very well. And he's kind of used to being in that role. So he knows how to talk to some of the people of the younger generation a little better. So, yeah.
Great call on that. That's a great call. And I'm going to obviously pick your brain a lot more about Kuminga and really want to make the theme of today's show about the youngsters, which also includes James Wiseman, who's about to enter his third year, Moses Moody, who's also about to enter his second year. First, want to give some love to a very long time sponsor of this program, Built Bar. If you haven't tried a Built Bar yet in general, I feel like you're depriving yourself of a tremendous joy, just because, I mean, it obviously depends on the flavor. If you go to built.com, you can order a sample pack to figure out which is right for you. I mean, I love the granola bars, but the beauty of Built Bar is that it has a fraction of the calories of a candy bar. It has on average an eighth of the sugar that a candy bar has. Yet it's packed with protein. They usually have 17 grams of protein for each Built Bar. One thing I'm struggling with in life is the late night munchies. And Built Bar has helped me a lot because instead of gorging on something that's horrible for you, I eat just one Built Bar, which on average has about 150 calories, 17 grams of protein. That helps make me feel full. While at the same time, you only get on average 4 grams of sugar, so I'm not putting all these toxins in my body. And I feel full, so I'm not gorging. I'm going to bed. I'm happy. And Built Bar is just, that's what they do. And the protein that Built Bars have is collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently. It provides a ton of health benefits. You can eat something that tastes good and is good for you. So go to built.com, use the promo code, and it's a new promo code. Be aware, Locked On 15. Again, go to built.com, use the promo code Locked On 15, and get 15% off your order at built.com.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022. It's an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You follow Sophia Jones, a point guard for the San Jose State Spartans basketball team at Sophia Jones _2. And just talking about Kuminga just for a little bit more. In your opinion, again, you play at a Division I program. You clearly know this game. I'm sure you and your dad, Mark Jones, talk hoops. Do you talk hoops? I mean, do you two actually like? Okay,
We
you do.
do. Yeah.
Okay. So you, I mean, whatever you deem a quote unquote expert, a lot of people throw that word around loosely when it really shouldn't. But I mean, if you definitely fit like the prototype. So based on your expert opinion, you've seen Jonathan Kuminga now playing for a whole year. He finished his rookie campaign. He's about to enter year 2. What are your thoughts on his game? Like in terms of analyzing, his growth as a player, his strengths, his weaknesses. What are your thoughts on Jonathan Kuminga?
I love his game. I feel like one of the things that's really hard to coach is motor. And when you look at him play on the court, his motor is always really high. So I really think that he has a really good upside. And some of the talk and rumors about his work ethic, I see those kind of fizzling away. And I see that this kid could be really, really something special, honestly.
Same. I've been raving about him. Like I said, even though his image is taking a little hit right now, I've been saying for weeks now that if Kuminga just starts showing up to practice at the same time as Curry and Poole, I feel like whatever issues may exist there, and I say may because there might not be any issues, but if there are issues there, I feel like that would just go away because Steph and Jordan Poole are notorious for being the first 2 players of practice. They're usually there right when the doors are open. And I don't know, would you agree with that? Do you think if Kuminga just started maybe putting in those extra few minutes or hours, whatever that translates to, would that make a difference? Or do you think he's doing fine what he's doing now?
I feel like the people that are actually the players and the coaches are really the people that can really speak to as to who Kuminga is. So we really don't know if he's fine as he is right now, but I mean, as a younger player and as a player in general, like you always do want to try to get in as much gym time and extra reps as possible just to give yourself that extra edge and give you that confidence boost that 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 the skills that you worked on can translate onto the court.
Absolutely. What about let's shift gears to another youngster here, and that's James Wiseman. He's entering his 3rd season All indications is that he's putting in the time. I've heard that he's starting to really grasp the system of the Warriors on both sides of the court, both offensively and defensively. I mean, he's a physical specimen. There's no doubt about that. He brings size. What are your thoughts on Wiseman and as we hopefully get to see a full season with him?
Yeah, I think he could be a really, really big piece for the Warriors. Kevon Looney is a great person to that he can model or just kind of learn from. But he also does some things that Looney doesn't, where he can kind of stretch out the Warriors' offense a little better, which, as they like to do so much in transition and play such a fast motion pace, that extra mobility could create real problems on offense.
Yeah. And he's fat. I mean, people really seem to underestimate and underrate his speed. He covers the court from one side to the other so fast. He's an underrated ball handler, very underrated shooter. His form is fantastic. I'm really excited. Like the more I'm hearing, the more I just talk about him on this show or wherever, the more excited I'm getting. And then Moses Moody is someone I feel like universally there seems to be the least amount of worry about him. People use the term old soul when describing him last year, meaning his maturity is just, much further along than someone his age typically is. He just turned 20, I think, a couple months ago. What are your thoughts on Moody? I mean, what parts of his game really stick out to you? What about him as an individual? Your thoughts on Moody, please.
I feel like the perception that he's kind of created for himself, like you said, that he is an old soul and very mature for his age, will take him a really long way.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's just going to be a very solid player for the Warriors. And when you look at kind of the loss of Otto Porter, I feel like he could kind of step into a similar position to that and provide some really good minutes for the Warriors. And then whenever you hear about how mature someone is for their age, that always means that they're just going to be like, not always, but that's good, like in the locker room. So, he's going to kind of just be a good presence, which always helps.
Absolutely. And chemistry is such a vitally important variable for this Warriors team. The old adage, strength in numbers, it rings true with this team. And by the way, I'm going to play a Klay Thompson clip for you folks in just a minute, just because I randomly stumbled across this the other day. It was in his press conference after the Warriors won the World Championship. This thing blew up just because of how honest Klay was, especially when he was criticizing another NBA player about the strength in numbers adage. Final thoughts on these youngsters real quick before we move on. In your opinion, are you worried at all about Jonathan Kuminga, or do you think he's on the right path to eventually become a potential star, if not superstar in this game? Is there any worry from you, and any final thoughts about Jonathan Kuminga?
There isn't really any worry on my end. I feel like even if there potentially was something, he's in the best environment to be able to fix those habits and create new and better ones. So there's really not worry on my end.
There you go. That's hearing that, Dub Nation, should make you feel better, because unlike a lot of these old talking heads who are talking about Kuminga and all these other players, Sophia, you're almost practically his age. You're older, which is crazy. But yes, you're much closer to the age, and I feel a lot better hearing from you that Kuminga's going to be okay. I got to play this Klay Thompson clip real quick. So again, it's just, even though I've played this before, everyone's heard it. I actually didn't hear this full long version of it before until I stumbled across this. I think it was on social media. I forgot where I found it. But this was Kuminga in the post-game press conference after the Warriors won their fourth World Championship in 8 years. Take a listen to Klay.
I can't wait. There was this one player on the Grizzlies who tweeted strength in numbers after they beat us in the regular season, and it pissed me off so much. I can't wait to retweet that thing. Freaking bum. I had to watch that. I'm just like, this freaking clown. Okay. Sorry. That memory just popped up. You're going to mock us? Like, you ain't ever been there before, bro. We've been there. We know what it takes. So to be here again, hold that.
Oh my God. I don't know why I get such a kick out of that. Am I the only one, Sophia? Like, what are your thoughts on Klay Thompson just basically remembering all the criticism as fuel for motivation? Your thoughts on Klay?
I love that. I love how unfiltered that is. He said he was done, and then he was like, "Hold on, I actually have more I wanna say about
Uh-huh.
that." So, I love Clay, though. I think people were saying, like, "Oh, like, he's living, like, rent-free in his head," but it's just like, you're on such a high, and it's just, like, little things that pop into your mind,
Yep.
and it's just you wanna speak on them.
Hell yeah. And especially when they're like disrespectful comments like that. These Grizzlies players, I don't know why they have this. Speaking of motors, like they have a motor attached to all their mouths that just does not stop. And I really don't get that. But you're right. Because the first time I saw that attribution, they cut it off. I didn't see that end part where you're right. He just keeps going. He goes, sorry. But, and then he just piles on and adds a few more thoughts before ending. I love Klay, man. Klay, Alexander Thompson, you rule. The Warriors are in the news today for adding some players. They've added 4 players to their training camp roster. And part of the reason they're doing this is because they want to get players in Chase Center as the veterans start showing up here in September for 5-on-5 scrimmages. And Avery Bradley was part of that mold last year. But for this year, the Warriors have brought in 4 players. One of these 4, maybe even 2, could get roster spots because as of right now, the Warriors roster is set at 13 players. So all indications are they're not going to go 15, which they could, but they have to have 14 players on that roster. And today they brought in veterans Ben McLemore, who I think played for the Portland Trailblazers last year, Elfrid Payton, who I don't know who he played for. It might have been the Suns a year ago. I believe former point guard. Isn't the one with the crazy hair? Is that him, Sophia? Am I thinking of the right person?
I think you are, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Yeah.
and he's, I think, a point guard, stands 6'3", former lottery pick. They also brought Rondé Hollis Jefferson, who I'm not that familiar with. My understanding is he's a 6'6", a power forward. And then Kenneth Faried, a player who you and I, when we were talking before we started recording, both have a lot of fond memories of him. He used to be a very dominating presence in the NBA. I don't know what happened to him in terms of his fall off. But for some reason, he stopped getting the big money deals. He stopped being an impact player. But if he can show semblances of his old self, I would love that. Your thoughts on these 4 players that the Warriors just brought in as training camp invitees who could, in theory, make the roster?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Kenneth Faried, I feel like you don't get the nickname Manimal by just being
Right.
some regular player. But yeah, I mean, the Warriors also they have good history with kind of revitalizing players' careers as well. So this could be a good landing spot for him. And then Elfrid Payton, he's provides some athleticism. I want to say, like you said, he is good, solid point guard.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are kind of the names that stuck out to me the most.
And what about Ben McLemore? His name, for some reason, I was looking at some of the chatter among Gov Nation in terms of who they're excited about on social media, and Ben McLemore's name, for some reason, stuck out the most. I mean, I remember him. I've seen him play. I know he's a decent player. I think a shooting guard, I believe. Any thoughts on him though? Because I'm not like super excited about him, but a lot of other people are. Are you? And any thoughts on Ben McLemore?
I honestly don't have that many thoughts. I don't recall him too much as a player, if I'm being honest.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like I said, he's 29 years old. He's 6'3". I always pictured him as a shooting guard. And he's another former lottery pick. He was in the 2013 draft, picked 7th overall by the Sacramento Kings. So yeah, those are the 4 players that the Warriors have picked up and added to their roster. Let's talk about you for a second. You play for a D1 school, San Jose State University. I teach there. You play women's basketball there. Are you a starter? Are you coming off the bench? Have you figured out your role yet? What are your thoughts on the team and your thoughts on your experience heading into, I believe, your second year playing for the Spartans?
Yeah, it's funny you say second year.
Is
Whenever I
it?
have to Yeah, so whenever I have to introduce myself, I always say sophomore on the court and junior in the classroom. It's just really complicated because of COVID. But yeah, we have a lot of new incomers this year, new coaching staff. So looking to kind of propel the San Jose State women's basketball program in a positive direction. And just kind of looking forward to seeing what this new energy can bring, really.
Absolutely. One of my colleagues who I host 2 days a week with on Locked On Warriors, Kylan Mills, she's going to start doing some sideline reporting, I think, for the football games. It's just awesome that you play for a D1 school, just because so many opportunities emerge from that. And have you figured out if you're going to be a starter yet this year? Are you coming off the bench? What is your role for the team?
Haven't figured that out yet. I'm point guard, and our first regular season game isn't for a couple more months. And like I said, I'm not sure what the exact number is, but I want to say like 8 incoming players. So it's just
Wow.
kind of a lot. Yeah. So a lot to figure out, and just a lot of competition every day on the court, trying to figure stuff out and kind of get the spots that we want, because nothing is really given right now. You really have to earn it, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're excited. How can people watch your games? I was going to say I'm looking forward to seeing you, and I'm like, can
Yeah.
I see you? Like, how do people watch San Jose State women's basketball games?
So during our conference season, our games are streamed on the Mountain West Network, since that's our conference. And then
Nice.
I want to say this year, some of our games will be broadcasted on NBC Sports. I don't know if it's Bay Area or California,
Okay.
but so yeah, we had 2 games last year broadcasted with them. My dad actually got to call one of those games, so he enjoyed doing that. But we'll have that TV exposure too. And I'm
I
not
was
sure
about to
about our non-conference games.
Okay. I was about to bring
Yeah.
that up. Last time I had your dad on the show, Mark Jones. And I can't imagine how you felt watching him do the play-by-play in the NBA Finals. That was freaking awesome. But how does it feel to? And I guess explain that. Like, how does it feel to see your dad calling NBA Finals games? Mike Breen had COVID. He was out, I think, for the first 3 games. So your dad stepped in. And then how does it feel to have your dad call one of your games? Because the last time he was on this show, I brought that up, and he was such a proud dad. Like, what were your feelings in that situation?
Yeah, kind of in the way that he said he was a proud dad calling my game. I felt like a proud daughter watching him call the finals,
Hell yeah!
just because I know how much work he really puts in, and how, yeah, just how much he's really fought to get into the position that he's in. And for him also to be a part of the first all black crew that called the NBA finals ever
I did
was,
not know that.
yeah. So it was
Oh,
him, Mark Jackson, and Lisa Salters were all on the call. So having saying being able to say that he was a part of that is like, it's so amazing too.
heck
I'm
yeah!
just, yeah, I'm honestly just, I was almost as excited to watch the actual like Warriors play as just to hear my dad on the call.
I did. That's news to me. I was not made aware of that. That because COVID took out Breen, it took out Van Gundy. Yeah, so there was one game where it was just Mark, the 2 Marks, and
Yeah.
then Lisa Salters, and I just never thought of that. Thanks for raising awareness of that fact. That's fascinating and awesome. One final question. We'll call it a day here. What are your thoughts on the Warriors offseason as a whole? Like in your opinion, look, they lost Gary. They lost almost all their veterans from the bench, but they replaced them either with another fellow solid veterans, and they're now expecting the youth that we've talked about most of this show to kind of take a bigger role this year. I don't see any of their opposition really getting that much better outside of the Clippers, mainly because of health. But what are your thoughts on the Warriors offseason, and how do you like their chances to repeat as world champions this year?
I think after kind of my initial kind of disappointment with Gary Payton II and Otto Porter leaving, seeing kind of some of the other pieces that the Warriors brought in, and seeing how this young core was able to perform and develop at Summer League, I think that this still Warriors still on a upside. honestly. And like you said, I was trying to think of some other title contenders, and I think obviously probably the Celtics again would be another team that's right there, and then
There.
I can also see the Bucks and Heat being some potential dangers. And then in the Western Conference, you mentioned the Clippers, which is kind of a lot like a little bit of a wild card just
Hmm.
because um, they're coming back from injuries with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, which,
Right.
I mean, those are some Hall of Famers. So they could potentially pose a bit of a threat. And I would I would say maybe them to pose the biggest threat to the Warriors in the Western Conference.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And the other team, and they're so underrated. It's weird to me that, speaking of Jaren Jackson Jr., who Klay Thompson just ripped a new one there. But the Grizzlies, I don't know why people sleep on them. I mean, they had another. They didn't pick up any big free agents, but they had another solid draft. Just getting more of these big wing type players. Just a lot of large bodies. That seems to be one of their strategies for drafting. I think they're still a threat. I mean, I don't think they're going to beat the Warriors, but it's John Morant with another year of experience. Jaren Jackson Jr., another year of experience, even though he's going to be out until I think January. So folks, don't sleep on the Grizzlies either. But yeah, I agree with you with all those other teams, especially the Bucks. It wouldn't surprise me if they come out of the East again this year. But should be fun. I think we covered everything, right? Are we good? Did I miss anything? Anything you want to promote? We forgot about talking about something? Are we done?
Everything. I think we covered everything.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Again, you can follow Sophia Jones one more time on Twitter at Sophia Jones_2. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow, and this program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Sophia, always a pleasure. Thank you. Say hi to your dad for me, please. And let's do this again sometime. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, absolutely. Later, everyone. Take care.